Hey guys. Tonight, we're slipping back to a small house on a quiet American street, sometime in the early 1960s, where the porch light is still on and the evening smells of cut grass and warm pavement, cooling after a long summer day. Somewhere down the block, a screen door taps shut. A radio plays low through an open kitchen window, and inside one of these houses a young woman is standing at the sink, one hand resting gently against her middle, realizing that everything is about to change. That is where we are going tonight. Not to the headlines or the history books, but to something quieter and closer to the heart. We're going to remember what it felt like to become a mother in 1960s America. Before we settle in, I want to say a real thank you to the viewer who suggested this one. You wrote in so thoughtfully and honestly. So many of the best ideas on this channel come straight from you. It means more than you know. If you feel like it, and only if you feel like it, you are always welcome to like the video, leave a comment or subscribe, so we can keep wandering back through these gentle old years together. No pressure at all. And if you would rather drift off listening with your eyes closed, the channel is now on Spotify as well, so you can find these stories there too, with the link waiting in the description whenever you want it. Now, go ahead and get comfortable. Dim the lights until the room goes soft and golden. Turn on a fan for that low, steady hum. Pull the blanket up, find the cool side of the pillow, and let your shoulders come down from wherever the day left them. And as you settle, let yourself wonder for a moment. What did it feel like to find out you were expecting, back before a test could tell you in your own bathroom? What did the doctor's office smell like on that first visit? How did a young wife tell her husband the news over dinner? What did they fold into the dresser drawer for a baby who did not have a name yet, or even a face they could picture? What did the first night home from the hospital sound like, in a house that had never held a cry before? And just like that, it is 1963. The kettle is warming on the stove. The evening paper is folded on the arm of the chair. Somewhere upstairs, a small room is waiting to be filled, and a whole new life is only just beginning. Let's start in the early morning, before the rest of the house is awake. The light through the kitchen curtains is thin and grey, and the coffee you usually love smells strange today, almost too sharp. You stand at the counter with a hand pressed lightly to your stomach, counting back the weeks in your head, and a small, warm thought begins to bloom, one you're almost afraid to say out loud. You don't know anything for certain yet. There is no test in the medicine cabinet to tell you, no bright little line to read in private. There is only a feeling, quiet and enormous, that your whole life may have just tilted gently on its axis while you were making breakfast. The house is still around you. Your husband's footsteps have not yet found the stairs. The children of the neighbourhood have not yet spilled out onto the sidewalks with their bicycles and their calling voices. It is only you and this thought, and the slow tick of the clock above the stove, and the way the morning keeps arriving as though nothing at all has changed. You set the coffee down and let it go cold. You have never done that before, but you cannot bring the cup to your lips, not this morning, and so it simply sits there steaming on the counter while you rest both hands on the edge of the sink and look out at the yard. The grass is silvered with dew. A single robin works its way across the lawn, and you find yourself watching it the way you might watch something you are seeing for the very first time. You think back over the last few weeks, gathering up the small signs you had set aside without quite noticing. The afternoon you fell asleep in the chair with the mending in your lap, the way certain smells have turned against you, the fried onions, the gasoline at the filling station, the perfume you have worn for years, a tenderness, a tiredness no amount of early nights seems to touch. On their own, each one was nothing. Together this morning, they arrange themselves into something you can no longer explain away. And so you begin to count. You stand very still and count back across the calendar in your mind, week by week. And when you reach the number you already suspected, Your breath catches somewhere high in your chest. You're not a woman given to fancy. You're practical, careful, the kind who checks the stove twice before leaving the house. But there is nothing practical about the feeling rising in you now, warm and bright and utterly beyond your control. You cannot know for certain. That is the strange truth of this morning. In these years there is no small box to open in the bathroom, no quiet way to learn the answer alone before breakfast. What you have instead is patience and a suspicion, and the long wait that lies ahead before a doctor can tell you what your own body is already whispering. It is a slower way of knowing than the one that will come to women later, and there is something almost tender in that slowness, a secret held a little while longer between you and no one else at all. You press your hand flat against your middle, gently, the way you might touch a door you're not yet sure you're allowed to open. There is nothing to feel there yet, nothing anyone could see, and still you feel it. Not with your fingertips, but with something deeper, some quiet inner certainty that has already begun to make room. You wonder, standing there, who this might be. You wonder about a face you cannot picture, a voice you have never heard, a whole person folded up so small they're hardly there at all. You wonder if you will be any good at this. You wonder what your husband will say, and your mother, and what the coming months will ask of you. The questions arrive all at once, a soft flood of them, and you let them come, because there is no answering any of them yet. Upstairs, at last, you hear the bed springs shift, then footsteps crossing the ceiling. The house is waking. In a moment he will come down in his undershirt, hair still rumpled from the pillow, and reach for the very cup of coffee you could not drink, and the ordinary day will fold itself back around you both. You're not ready to tell him. Not yet. You want to hold this a little longer, just as it is, unspoken and entirely your own. So you turn on the tap and pour the cold coffee down the drain and rinse the cup, and set it in the rack to dry, and smooth your apron with hands that are not quite steady. And when he comes into the kitchen and kisses the top of your head, and asks if you slept well, you smile and say yes, and you begin the morning as you always do. But something has changed, and he does not yet know it, and only you do. It is the kind of morning a woman remembers for the rest of her life, though it looks from the outside like any other. And that perhaps is the quiet wonder of it. The whole enormous turn of a life, arriving not with trumpets, but with a hand on the counter and a cup of coffee, left to grow cold in the early grey light. It is a few days later now, and you're sitting on a firm chair in a waiting room that smells of rubbing alcohol and floor wax. A ceiling fan turns slowly overhead. You've worn your good dress and your gloves, because you always dress up for the doctor, and you fold your hands in your lap and try to look calmer than you feel. When the nurse finally calls your name, your heart lifts into your throat. There will be no instant answer today, only tests sent away and a wait of several long days. But somehow, deep down, you already know what he is going to tell you. The magazines on the low table beside you are curled at the corners, months out of date, their bright covers promising casseroles and a Christmas that has already come and gone. You do not read them. You sit with your gloved hands folded and your ankles crossed, the way your mother taught you, and you watch the other women in the room, each one waiting for news of her own. Nobody speaks above a murmur here. It is the kind of hush that gathers in places where important things are decided. When the nurse leads you down the corridor, your shoes sound very loud on the polished floor. She shows you into a small room with a high table covered in a strip of white paper, and asks you, kindly, to make yourself comfortable, which is a thing people say in doctors' offices that no one has ever quite managed to do. You perch on the edge of the table and wait, and the paper crackles beneath you, and somewhere down the hall, a telephone rings and rings. The doctor comes in with your slim folder in his hand. He's an older man, unhurried. the kind who has ushered half the babies on your street into the world and seems to carry that history in the steadiness of his voice. He asks you the questions you've been half expecting and half dreading, about dates and about how you've been feeling, and you answer as plainly as you can, though your cheeks warm at the frankness of it. He listens, he nods, he writes something in his careful hand. There is an examination, brief and matter-of-fact, and then he asks the nurse to bring a small bottle and explains that they will send a sample away to the laboratory to be sure. In these years, that is how it is done. There is no answer given here in the room, no machine to hum and blink and settle the matter in a moment. Your sample will travel across town to a laboratory where it will be tested in ways you do not fully understand and would rather not picture, and in a handful of days the office will telephone, or you will come back, and then you will know. A wait of several days. Sounds so simple when he says it. But you know already how those days will stretch, how each one will feel like a week, how you will jump every time the telephone rings on the kitchen wall. You will go about your washing and your marketing and your suppers with this question suspended over everything, close as your own shadow. The doctor sets down his pen and looks at you over the top of his glasses, and though he is far too careful a man to promise anything before the laboratory has spoken, there is something in his expression that is almost a smile. He tells you to rest when you are tired, and to eat well, and not to lift anything heavy, and to try above all not to worry. It is gentle advice, and impossible advice, and you thank him for it as though you intend to follow every word. Out in the corridor, the nurse gives you a small card with the date of your next visit written on it, and you tuck it carefully into your handbag, beside your gloves, beside your handkerchief, beside all the small ordinary things you carry. It seems a very great thing to fit onto such a small card. You step back out into the daylight and the ordinary noise of the street, the passing cars, a delivery truck idling at the curb, a woman calling to her child on the far sidewalk. Nothing out here has changed, and yet you stand for a moment on the front step of that office, blinking in the brightness, feeling the whole enormous secret of it pressing warm against your ribs. You think, on the ride home, of how it will be for the mothers who come after you, who will learn such things in minutes, alone, in the privacy of their own bathrooms, and never have to sit in a room like this one with their gloved hands folded waiting. You do not envy them exactly. There is a strange dignity in this slower way, in the whitewashed hush of the waiting room, in a wise old doctor who knew you as a girl, in the patience the waiting asks of you. It makes the knowing, when it finally comes, feel earned. And though the laboratory has not yet spoken, and the telephone has not yet rung, you already carry the answer home with you, folded up small and certain, the way you will soon carry so much more. It is evening now, and you have been holding this secret close to your chest all afternoon, like something warm and breakable. You have made his favourite supper. The table is set a little nicer than usual, and you keep glancing at the clock, listening for the sound of his car in the driveway and the familiar creak of the screen door. You have rehearsed a dozen ways to say it, and forgotten every single one. When he finally walks in, tired and ordinary and yours, you realise you'll simply have to look at him and let the truth spill out however it wants to. He sets his hat on the hook by the door the way he does every night, and loosens his tie, and calls out that something smells wonderful, and for a moment you almost lose your nerve entirely. Because he is so exactly himself, so unaware, moving through the small, familiar motions of coming home, that the news you carry feels almost too big to bring into the room. You watch him from the kitchen doorway with a dish towel in your hands and your heart going like a drum. He notices, of course. Husbands always notice more than we give them credit for. He asks if everything is all right, a small line of concern appearing between his brows, and you realise you have been standing there too long, saying nothing, smiling a smile that will not stay still on your face. And so you tell him. Maybe not with the words you planned. Maybe you simply say his name, and then say you went to the doctor, and then find you cannot finish the sentence at all, that your throat has closed around it, and your eyes have filled. But he understands. You watch the understanding cross his face slowly, like sunrise, disbelief giving way to wonder, giving way to a joy so plain and open that it undoes you completely. He crosses the kitchen in 2 steps and takes you by the shoulders and searches your face as if to be sure he has heard you right. And when you nod, when you manage at last to say that yes, you are going to have a baby, he laughs out loud, one bright, startled sound, and gathers you up against his chest. You can feel his heart pounding through his shirt as fast as your own. Neither of you says anything for a long moment. There is nothing that needs saying. The supper you fussed over sits steaming and forgotten on the table, and the 2 of you stand there in the middle of the small warm kitchen holding on. When you finally pull apart, you both laugh at the tears on your faces, and he pulls out your chair for you with an exaggerated care that makes you laugh harder, as though you have suddenly become something precious and breakable. You tell him you're not made of glass. He says he will be the judge of that. And you sit down to a dinner gone lukewarm, and neither of you minds in the least because you cannot stop looking at each other across the table. The talk comes pouring out then. All the talk you have been holding back alone. He wants to know when. He wants to know how you feel, whether you're tired, whether you have eaten enough. He asks a dozen practical questions and forgets the answers immediately, because underneath the questions he is simply marvelling, the same as you. You talk about the little spare room at the end of the hall and what it might become. You try out names, laughing at the ridiculous ones, going quiet over the ones that fit. He does the arithmetic on the calendar in his head and announces the month a season away, and it seems at once impossibly far off and frighteningly soon. And beneath the joy you catch the flicker of something else moving behind his eyes, the weight of it settling onto his shoulders even as he grins. A man in these years carries the providing on his own back, and you can see him already reckoning with it. The doctor bills and the crib and the mouth that will need feeding, the raise he will have to ask for, the overtime he will quietly take. He does not say any of this. He only reaches across the table and covers your hand with his and tells you not to worry about a thing, that he will take care of you both. Later, when the dishes are washed and the lights are low, you sit together on the davenport and let the quiet fold back around you. There is no telephone to pick up yet, no one else to tell, not tonight. Tonight it belongs only to the 2 of you. This news too enormous and too new to share. In the years to come, couples will learn to fling such moments out into the world at once, to strangers and to friends alike, before the wonder has even had time to settle. But here, in this small living room, the announcement travels no farther than the 2 of you, and there is a richness in that, a depth to the quiet. You lean your head against his shoulder, and he rests his cheek against your hair, and neither of you speaks. Outside, the street lamp hums to life. A neighbour's dog barks once and falls silent. The ordinary evening carries on all around you, unchanged, unknowing. And you sit there together in the lamplight, a husband and a wife who this morning were simply 2 people, and who are from this night on quietly and forever a family beginning. The next morning you dial your mother on the telephone, the cord stretched across the kitchen as far as it will go. You can picture her exactly, standing in her own kitchen a few miles or a few states away, dish towel over her shoulder, wondering what has you calling before 10 in the morning. This is the woman who knew you before you knew yourself, who raised you through fevers and heartbreaks, and now you are about to tell her that you're going to do the very thing she once did for you. When the words finally come out, there is a small silence on the line, and then a sound in her voice you have not heard since you were very small. It is a small sound, hardly a word at all. A quick, indrawn breath, and then your name, said soft and wondering, the way she used to say it leaning over your crib in the dark. And then she is laughing and crying at once, asking 100 questions in a rush. When and how are you feeling? And have you been to the doctor? And does your husband know? And you can hear her sink down into the kitchen chair as her knees give out beneath the news. You had meant to keep the call short. Long distance is dear, and you were raised to watch the minutes, to say what needs saying and let the rest wait for a letter. But some news will not be rationed by the clock, and so you let the call run long, standing in the kitchen with the receiver warm against your ear and the coiled cord stretched to its limit, and you let your mother talk. She tells you things she has never told you before. What it was like when she was carrying you in a leaner and harder time, the way her own mother came to help, the remedies and the superstitions, the long night you finally arrived. You've heard pieces of these stories all your life, but you hear them differently now from the inside, as one woman to another rather than as a child at her knee. Something has shifted between you in the space of a single telephone call. You've crossed over into her country, and she's standing at the border to welcome you home. She offers to come, of course, to be with you when your time draws near, and you tell her yes, please, come, and you both go quiet for a moment at the thought of it. She begins already to plan, to reckon the distance and the season, to think of what she will bring, what she will knit, what she remembers you will need. This is what mothers do. She's been doing it for you your whole life, and now she will teach you how it is done. You talk of practical things, and then of tender ones, and then of nothing much at all, unwilling to be the first to say goodbye. She wants to know if you're eating enough. She reminds you to rest your feet in the afternoons. She tells you an old trick of her mother's for the queasiness in the mornings, and you write it down on the pad by the telephone in your careful hand, though you suspect you will remember it anyway. When at last you say your goodbyes and set the receiver back on its cradle, the kitchen seems very quiet. You stand there a moment with your hand still resting on the telephone, feeling the miles that lie between you, wishing she were near enough to embrace. In these years, the country is a wide place, and a mother and a daughter may live a long train ride apart and see each other only a few times in a year. The letters will fly back and forth now, thick with advice and lists and folded patterns, and you will save every one. But it is not the same as her hands on your shoulders, and you both know it, and neither of you says so. Later, women will carry their mothers in their pockets, able to see their faces and hear their voices across any distance in a single moment, whenever the loneliness strikes. You have only the telephone on the wall and the postman at the door and the promise of a visit still months away. And yet the love comes through all the same, undimmed by the distance, as strung down a crackling telephone line as it would be across a kitchen table. You pick up your dish towel again and return to the morning's work, but you're humming now, a tune your mother used to sing over your cradle. Some things pass down a family the way the colour of the eyes does, quietly, without anyone deciding. And this morning, standing in your own kitchen with the sun climbing the wall, you understand that you've just received the oldest inheritance there is. Word travels quickly on a street like yours. It moves over back fences and through kitchen windows, carried between the women who hang their wash on the same mornings and watch the same children play in the same yards. You didn't make an announcement exactly, but a neighbour noticed you turning down her coffee cake, and another saw you resting on the porch in the middle of the afternoon, and somehow by the end of the week the whole block seems to know. And rather than feeling exposed, you feel something warmer settle over you, the quiet certainty that you're being gathered in. The first sign of it comes when the woman next door appears at your kitchen door one morning with a covered dish and a knowing look, and does not stay long and does not need to explain herself. She simply presses the warm casserole into your hands and tells you to put your feet up this afternoon, and squeezes your arm and is gone back across the driveway before you can find the words to answer. You stand there holding the dish, its warmth seeping into your palms, understanding that you have been welcomed into something without ever having asked. By week's end, they have all found their small ways of letting you know that they know. One brings a stack of maternity smocks her own body has finished with, laundered and folded and smelling of the same soap the whole street seems to use. Another mentions, offhand, that her sister has a bassinet gathering dust in the attic, and would you have any use for it? A third simply catches your eye over the fence while you both peg out the wash and smiles the particular smile that passes between women who have carried life and women who are carrying it now. These are the women of your street, and you know them the way you know the seasons, by long and unhurried acquaintance. You have borrowed cups of sugar from their kitchens and lent them your good roasting pan. You have sat out on the front steps with them in the blue of the evening while the men pushed their mowers up and down the lawns, and the children raced their bicycles up the block until the streetlights came on. It is a life lived mostly outdoors and mostly together. A life of open doors and unlatched screens, where a woman is never quite alone even when her husband is away at work all the livelong day. And now you understand that this whole loose web of neighbourly watching, which you had always simply taken for granted, is about to draw close around you. These women will feed you when you're too tired to cook. They will mind you when your time comes near. They will know, before you do, when to send their husbands over to help move a heavy thing, when to appear at your door with a pie, when to leave you be. There is a kind of privacy you're giving up, of course, in being known this thoroughly by the people who live within calling distance. Nothing on a street like yours stays secret for long. But you find you do not mind. There is a deep and old comfort in being seen, in belonging so plainly to a place and a people. In the years to come, families will live side by side for decades and never learn one another's names. Will pass in the driveway with a distant wave and think nothing of it. Will carry their joys and their troubles alone behind closed doors. It is a quieter way to live, and a lonelier one, and something is lost in it that these women would have found hard to imagine ever letting go. But that is a long way off, and it is not your world. Your world is this street, these fences, these open windows, these women who have folded you into their number without a word of ceremony. On the evening the last of them lets you know she knows, you sit out on your own front steps as the sky goes soft and golden, and you watch the familiar comings and goings of the block, and you rest your hand on the small rise beneath your dress. You're not carrying this alone. You never were going to. On a street like yours, in a time like this, a baby belongs not only to a mother and a father, but to a whole, warm tangle of neighbours who will watch it grow up right alongside their own. And as the streetlights flicker on one by one down the length of the block, you feel yourself held, quietly and completely, in the oldest kind of keeping there is. The weeks begin to pass, and your body starts keeping its own private schedule. Some mornings the smell of frying bacon sends you hurrying from the kitchen. Certain afternoons a wave of tiredness rolls over you so completely that you sit down in the middle of the ironing and simply close your eyes. Your skirts grow snug at the waistband, and you leave the top button undone beneath your blouse where no one can see. It is strange and humbling and quietly miraculous, this slow rearranging of yourself to make room for someone else. You learn to move differently, without ever quite deciding to. You rise from a chair more slowly now, one hand going to the small of your back before you have any real reason for it, as if your body is rehearsing for the weight it will soon carry. You take the stairs with more care. You find yourself pausing at the top of them, one hand on the banister, catching a breath you did not know you had lost. The mornings are the hardest at first. You keep a sleeve of soda crackers in the drawer of the nightstand now on the advice of every woman who has been through it, and you learn to eat a few before you so much as lift your head from the pillow. Some days it helps, some days it does not, and you spend the early hour bent over the bathroom sink while the rest of the house sleeps on, and then splash cool water on your face and pin up your hair, and go down to make the breakfast you cannot bear to smell. You do not complain of it much. It is simply part of the bargain, and the older women promise it will pass, and mostly it does. The tiredness is a different creature altogether. It comes over you without warning in the middle of an afternoon, a heaviness in the limbs so complete that you could lie down on the kitchen floor and sleep. You learn to give in to it when you can, to lie down for half an hour with the radio murmuring while the light moves slowly across the ceiling, and to wake curiously restored, as though your body had important work to do in the dark behind your eyes, and has only now finished it. In a way, of course, it has. There is no book that can quite prepare you for how strange it is to feel yourself change from the inside out. The waistbands that will no longer fasten, the tenderness, the way your appetite swings from one extreme to the other, so that you crave on a Tuesday some particular food you have not thought of in years, and your husband drives out in the evening to find it for you, half laughing, half amazed. Your body, which has been simply yours all your life, the reliable everyday vehicle of your days, has become something else now, something you share, something with a will and a schedule and a mystery all its own. You cannot see what is happening within you. There is no picture to study, no way to peer inside and watch the small unfolding. You know it is happening only by these signs your body offers up, the tiredness and the tenderness and the slow rounding, and by faith, and by the plain evidence of the calendar. Later, mothers will watch their babies grow in grey and silver images taped to the refrigerator door, will count fingers and toes months before they meet them. You have only what your own body tells you, day by day, in its own quiet language. And there is an intimacy in that, in this long private season when you and no one else can feel what is happening, when the whole marvellous secret is written only on the inside of your skin. So you learn to listen to yourself in a way you never have before. You rest when the tiredness asks it. You eat what you can keep down and let the rest go. You loosen what needs loosening and stop apologizing to the mirror for the shape you are becoming. It is humbling, this surrender of the body to a purpose larger than your own comfort. And it is, when you let yourself feel it fully, one of the quietest wonders a life can hold. Some evening, catching sight of yourself sideways in the bedroom glass, you will pause and really look and see the change that everyone else has begun to notice too. And you will rest both hands upon it, gently, the way you might cradle something you have been entrusted with. Because that, in the end, is exactly what you are, not diminished by the changes, but enlarged by them, made week by careful week into the shape of a mother. It happens one still evening while you're sitting in the armchair with the radio playing low. At first you think you imagined it, a small movement deep inside, no more than the brush of a moth's wing against a window. You go very still and wait, hardly breathing, and then it comes again, unmistakable this time. Your hand flies to your middle, and your eyes fill without warning. After all these weeks of feeling changes only you could sense, here at last is the first hello, a tiny greeting from someone you have not yet met but already love. For a long moment you do not move at all. You sit with your hand pressed flat against yourself and your whole attention turned inward, waiting to see if it will come again, half afraid it was only the ordinary workings of your own body, the flutters and turnings you've felt 100 times. But no, there it is once more, that faint and particular tap, from a place no one else could reach, and you know it for exactly what it is. It is not you. It is the other one. It is the first small word in a conversation that will last the rest of your lives. The radio goes on murmuring its soft tune, and outside the window the evening settles blue over the yards, and the whole ordinary world keeps turning as though nothing has happened. But everything has happened. You sit very still in the pool of lamplight and let the tears run freely down your face, and you would not wipe them away for anything, because they are the sweetest tears you have ever shed. All these weeks the baby has been an idea, a certainty, a thing you knew in your mind and felt in your changing body. And now, all at once, the baby is a someone, moving, alive, saying hello in the only way it can. You want to call out to your husband at once, but he is in the next room with the evening paper, and for one selfish, tender moment you keep it to yourself. This first greeting meant for you alone. Then you cannot hold it any longer. You call his name, and something in your voice brings him quickly, paper still in hand, worry on his face, and you take his hand and press it to your middle and tell him to wait, to be patient, to be still. For weeks it will be too faint for him to feel. The flutters that fill your evenings are yours and yours alone at first, too small and too deep for any hand from the outside to catch. He rests his palm against you night after night, waiting, and feels nothing, and you watch the disappointment he tries to hide. But you tell him it is coming, and you describe it to him as best you can, and he listens the way a man listens to news from a country he cannot yet visit. And then one night, it happens. You are lying in the dark, his hand resting where it always rests, when the baby delivers a kick so hearty and so sure that even his patient waiting hand cannot miss it. You feel him startle, you hear his breath catch, and then he laughs, low and astonished in the darkness beside you, and his hand presses closer, and the two of you lie there wide awake, waiting for the next one. Two grown people reduced to helpless wonder by the smallest, most ancient miracle there is. From that night on, the baby is real to him too, in a way it could not be before. He talks to it now, foolishly, tenderly, his mouth close to the round of your belly, telling it about the day, about the ball game, about the cradle he means to build out in the workshop. And the baby answers in its own fashion, with a roll or a kick, until the whole thing becomes a private nightly ritual, a family already gathering itself in the dark before the newest member has so much as opened its eyes. There will be days ahead when you're tired, when your back aches and your feet swell and the waiting seems as though it will never end. But you will always have these evenings to return to, these first quiet flutterings that no photograph could ever have given you, this secret language spoken between your body and the small life within it. You come to know the baby by its movements long before you know its face, whether it is restless in the small hours, whether it stirs when you sing, whether it quiets when you rest a hand upon it. And in the years to come, when the child is grown and gone, and the house is quiet in a different way, you will remember these evenings most of all. The lamp low, the radio soft, the first brush of a moth's wing against a window, and the astonishing, unrepeatable joy of being, for those few private months, the only one in all the world who could feel it. There comes a morning when your favourite dress simply will not do up anymore, no matter how you turn or hold your breath. You stand in front of the closet and understand that it is time, so you fold your slim skirts and fitted blouses away in tissue paper, and you bring out the maternity smocks with their loose bodices and their soft, forgiving lines. They billow a little when you walk, and there is no hiding anything now. But there is a certain freedom in it too, in letting yourself be exactly the shape you are becoming. The dresses you set aside are the ones you courted in, married in, kept house in, and there is a small pang in folding them away, in wrapping them in tissue and laying them in the bottom of the drawer to wait for a body you will not have again for the better part of a year. You smooth them flat with your hand before you close the drawer, the way you might tuck a child in. They will keep, and you will be glad of them again someday. But not for a long while yet. The clothes that take their place are a different sort of thing altogether. Some you have sewn yourself in the evenings, from the tissue paper patterns spread across the dining table, smocks with gathered fronts and little bows tied high beneath the bust. Some are hand-me-downs from the women of the street, passed along the way such things always are, so that half the babies on the block will have been carried, in a manner of speaking, in the very same dresses. And one or two are store-bought, chosen carefully from the modest rack the department store keeps tucked away near the back, because a woman does not spend a great deal on clothes she will wear for only a few short months. The skirts are the cleverest part. They come with a great oval cut out of the front and a panel of soft stretchy fabric set into the gap, so that the skirt may grow along with you, let out week by week as you need it. You had not known such a thing existed until you needed one, and now you cannot imagine how you managed before. Over it all goes the smock, loose and long, meant to skim and drape and suggest rather than reveal, because even now, even plainly and obviously carrying a child, a woman of these years dresses to keep a certain gentle modesty about the whole affair. It is a curious thing, this dressing to be both seen and unseen at once. No one on the street is in any doubt about your condition, and yet the words for it are spoken softly, if at all. You're expecting. You're in the family way. The plainer words are not quite said in polite company, and a fine lady on the television is never shown too obviously round. So you drape yourself in your soft smocks, and carry yourself with a certain grace, and the whole world politely agrees to notice and not to mention. And there is a kind of tenderness in the convention, old-fashioned as it is. There is comfort in it too, whatever else may be said. After months of waistbands that pinch and buttons that strain, there is a real and simple pleasure in slipping into something soft that asks nothing of you, that lets you breathe, that makes no demand that you be any smaller than you are. You put away the girdle, you put away the vanity that goes with it, and you find, a little to your surprise, that you do not miss them. The mothers who come after you will wear their changing shapes differently, proudly, in clothes cut close to show the world exactly what they are carrying, and there will be a fine, bold honesty in that. Your way is gentler and more hidden, all soft folds and downcast delicacy. Neither is wrong. They're only the manners of their different times. But there is something you would not trade in the quiet grace of your own, in the billowing smock and the tied bow and the whole modest tender pageantry of it. So you stand before the glass in your new soft clothes and turn this way and that, and you make your peace with the shape looking back at you. You're not the trim young woman who hung those folded dresses in the drawer. You're something rounder now, and slower, and fuller in every sense. And as you tie the small bow beneath your bust, and smooth the smock over the swell of you, you understand that these clothes, plain and temporary as they are a kind of announcement all their own, and a kind of honour. You're dressed now, as a mother, and you find that you wear it well. There is no machine that can peer inside and tell you, no photograph to tape to the refrigerator, no colour to paint the little room with any certainty. So instead you have the old ways, passed down and half believed. Your aunt studies how you're carrying and declares it a boy. Your neighbour dangles a needle on a thread over your wrist and watches which way it swings. You laugh at all of it, and yet you cannot help wondering, lying awake at night, whether you are dreaming of a son or a daughter, and how it will feel not to know until the very moment you finally do. Everyone has a theory, and everyone is certain of it. If you're carrying high, they say, it is one thing, and if you're carrying low, it is surely the other, though no two of them can quite agree on which is which. The way you crave sweets means a girl, unless it means a boy. The bloom in your cheeks tells one story, the colour of a strand of your hair another. Your grandmother has a way of reading it in the shape you've taken that has never once been wrong, she says, though you notice she's careful never to be pinned down until after the fact. The needle on its thread is the great favourite. A neighbour loops it over your open palm and holds it steady and waits for it to begin its slow swing, back and forth, for one, round and round for the other, and the two of you bend over your own hand like fortune-tellers, half laughing and half holding your breath. Someone else swears by a wedding band tied to a length of hair dangled over the round of your belly. Someone else still consults the old almanac, or the phase of the moon, or the particular Tuesday on which you first felt the baby move. You laugh at all of it, and you believe, just a little, all of it too, the way people do with the things their mothers and grandmothers swore by, unwilling to be quite so modern as to dismiss the old knowledge out of hand. Because the plain truth is that you cannot know, not really, not until the day itself. There is no way in these years to be told in advance. The baby keeps its own secret close and complete, right up until the moment it arrives and announces itself with a cry. And so you prepare for either. You knit in soft yellows and gentle greens and clean whites, the colours that will do for a son or a daughter alike. You choose two names and try each one out in the quiet of your mind, a boy's name and a girl's name, and carry both of them with you like coins in a pocket, not knowing which one you will spend. There is a suspense in it that fills the long months, a mystery that will not be solved before its time. It gives the family something to argue over happily at Sunday dinner, the aunts and uncles taking sides, laying their friendly wagers, each convinced they can tell. It gives your husband something to tease you about, and you him. And underneath the fun of it lies a deeper thing, a patience, an acceptance that some things simply cannot be hurried, that you must wait for the world to reveal itself in its own good time. In the years to come, families will gather to learn the answer months ahead, will cut into cakes baked with a hidden colour, will paint the little room the proper shade with perfect confidence, will send their announcements out to everyone they know. And there will be a joy in that, in the certainty and the celebration of it. But something will be given up as well, quietly, without anyone quite noticing. The oldest surprise there is, the not knowing. The way a father's face crumples when the doctor tells him, at long last, in that very moment, whether he has a son or a daughter, after all those months of wondering. You do not have their certainty, and you do not want it. You have instead the sweeter thing, the wondering itself, the long, delicious not knowing that keeps you company through the waiting months. Some nights you're sure it is a boy, some nights just as surely a girl. You dream of both, and love both already, this child of yours who is, for now, gloriously and completely a mystery. And you know that when the day comes, and the answer with it, you will not care in the least which one the needle or the almanac or your certain old grandmother turned out to have foretold. You will care only that the waiting is over, and the secret is out, and the small stranger you have carried all these months has a face at last and a name, the right one of the two you have been keeping ready all along. Once you begin to show, the whole world seems to have an opinion, and every one of them is delivered with great authority and great love. Your mother tells you one thing, your mother-in-law tells you the opposite, and the woman ahead of you at the market chimes in with a third. You're told what to eat and what to avoid, how much to rest and how much to walk, which folk remedies work and which will surely doom you. It can be dizzying, all these voices, but underneath the contradictions you begin to hear the real thing they are all saying, which is simply that they care, and that you are joining a very old and unbroken line. The advice arrives whether you ask for it or not. It comes from the women of your family and the women of your street, and from women you have never laid eyes on before, who take one look at you in the grocery aisle and feel moved to share whatever wisdom they have been holding in reserve for just such an occasion. Strangers grow bold around a woman who is expecting. They smile at you differently. Some of them, to your everlasting surprise, reach right out and lay a hand upon you as though the round of you were public property, and you learn to bear it with grace, because it is meant kindly every time. And oh, the things they tell you. You must eat for two now, one insists, pressing a second helping upon you. You must be careful not to eat too much, warns another, in the very same breath. You're not to lift your arms above your head, or the cord will wrap around the baby's neck, an old woman tells you with great seriousness. And though you are fairly sure it cannot be so, you find yourself reaching a little more carefully for the high cupboard all the same. You must not look upon anything ugly or frightening, another says, lest you mark the child, and you must not deny a craving, lest the baby be born wanting. You must carry a particular something in your apron pocket for luck. You must not, whatever you do, settle on a name too soon. Some of it is plain superstition, the leftover magic of harder and more frightened times, when so many things could go wrong and so little could be done, and a woman held tight to whatever charms and cautions her own mother had held to before her. And some of it, tucked in among the nonsense, is real and hard-won wisdom, the kind no book has ever quite managed to capture. The trick, you slowly learn, is in the sifting. You take the doctor's calm modern counsel, and you take your grandmother's ancient warnings, and somewhere between the two you find your own way forward, keeping what rings true, and letting the rest go by with a smile. Because you cannot look these things up. There is no place to turn for a plain and settled answer, no way to sort the true from the false with the tap of a finger. The knowledge you have is the knowledge these women carry, passed hand to hand down the generations, imperfect and contradictory and warm with the caring behind it. They are your encyclopedia and your almanac and your comfort all at once. And so you listen, even to the advice you do not intend to follow, because the listening itself is a kind of belonging. The mothers who come after you will have a different trouble. They will be able to find any answer they wish at any hour of the night from 1,000 voices they have never met, and they will nearly drown in the sheer plenty of it, unsure which to believe. What they may not always have is this: a real woman standing in a real kitchen, who has done the thing herself, who takes your hand and looks you in the eye and tells you, from her own life, that it will be all right. There is a weight to advice that comes with a face and a history behind it. There is a comfort in it that no amount of information can quite replace. So you nod, and you thank them, all of them, the wise and the foolish alike, and you let their voices gather around you like a warm and slightly quarrelsome chorus. Underneath every contradictory word of it, you have learned to hear the one true thing they are all trying to say, that they have been where you are going, that they came through it, and so will you, that you are not the first woman to be frightened and joyful and unsure all at once, and you will not be the last, and that is not a burden but a blessing. You are joining a line that stretches back further than anyone can trace, mother behind mother, each one passing along what she knew to the frightened, hopeful girl who came after her. And one day, not so very far off, you will be the woman in the kitchen, laying your hand on a younger woman's arm, telling her the things you learned, adding your own voice to the long, unbroken chorus. That is how it has always been done, and there is no book and no machine that will ever do it half so well. On the nightstand now sits a thick paperback with a worn cover, its spine already cracked from how often you open it. Dr. Spock has an answer for nearly everything, laid out in that calm, reassuring voice that seems to reach right off the page and pat your hand. You read it in bed at night while your husband sleeps, one lamp burning, following along as it tells you what to expect and gently reminds you that you know more than you think you do. In a time before you could look anything up in an instant, this single book feels like a friend who has done all of this before. You bought it new, or perhaps it was pressed upon you by a sister or a neighbour who had worn her own copy soft, its margins already penciled with small notes and question marks. Either way, it has become the most read thing in the house, more thumbed than the cookbook, more consulted than the family Bible. It lives within arm's reach of wherever you happen to be, on the nightstand by day's end, on the kitchen counter by morning, tucked into the basket beside your chair, because you never quite know when a worry will rise up that only Dr. Spock can settle. And what worries there are in these first months of not yet knowing anything. You wonder if the queasiness is ordinary or a sign of something gone wrong. You wonder if you're gaining too much or too little, sleeping too much or too little, eating the right things or the wrong. Each of these small fears, left alone in the dark, has a way of swelling into something larger than it is. And so, you reach for the book, and you find the page, and the calm, plain sentences reach up to meet you, and the fear shrinks back down to its proper size. That is the great gift of him, you come to feel. It is not only that he knows things, though he does, whole chapters of things, it is the way he says them. There is no scolding in his voice, no lofty talk over your head, none of the brisk impatience of a busy doctor with a full waiting room. He writes to you as though he is sitting across the kitchen table unhurried, kindly, taking your worries seriously without ever letting them frighten you. Trust yourself, he tells you, near the very beginning. You know more than you think you do, and on the nights when you feel you know nothing at all, when the whole undertaking seems impossibly large, you read that line over again, and something in you steadies. Your husband teases you gently about it, the way he catches you reading it under the lamp when you ought to be sleeping, but you notice he reaches for it himself once or twice, when he thinks you're not looking, thumbing quietly through the pages to see what is coming, to learn what will be asked of him. It is a book for both of you, in its way, a shared map of a country neither of you has travelled. You cannot ask it a question, of course. That is the one thing it cannot do. When a worry comes in the small hours that the book does not quite answer, you must simply hold it until morning, until you can telephone the doctor's office or catch a knowing neighbour over the fence. There is no voice to speak back to you in the night, no way to describe your particular trouble and have an answer come at once. You have only the book and the index at the back that you have half memorised, and your own slow reading by the light of the one lamp. And yet there is something in that limit you would not trade, because you must think a thing through for yourself, must sit with your worry and turn to the steady pages and reason your own way to calm. You come out the other side surer than you went in. The book does not do your worrying for you. It teaches you, gently, how to worry less. It hands your confidence back to you a little at a time, until you begin to believe that you might, after all, be equal to this. The mothers who come after you will have 1,000 voices to consult at any hour, a great clamouring crowd of them, each contradicting the last, and there will be a kind of loneliness in that plenty, a way of never quite knowing whom to believe. You have one voice, calm and constant, the same voice your neighbour trusts and your sister trusts, and half the mothers in the country are trusting this very night, each of them reading by her own lamp while her own house sleeps. There is a quiet fellowship in that, though you never think of it so. All across the land, women are turning the same worn pages, being told the same steadying things, and drawing from them the same slow courage. You mark your place with a scrap of ribbon, and set the book back on the nightstand, and turn off the lamp at last. In the dark, you rest your hand on the round of yourself and think of all he has told you, all that is still to come, the feeding and the fevers and the sleepless nights, the whole long adventure laid out chapter by chapter. And you're not so afraid of it now. You know more than you think you do. He said so. And lying there in the dark, you have very nearly begun to believe him. At the end of the hall is a small room that has always been just a spare, and now it is becoming something else entirely. Your husband spends a Saturday painting the walls a soft, gentle shade, the windows thrown open to let the fumes drift out. A second-hand crib is carried up the stairs and set beneath the window. You wash the little curtains and hang them yourself, standing on a chair you probably should not be standing on. And in the evenings you linger in the doorway of that half-finished room, imagining the nights you will spend there, and the mornings, and all the small, ordinary hours that are still to come. It has held so many dull and useful things over the years, this room. The ironing board, the cartons that never got unpacked, the chair with a wobbly leg that someone always meant to fix. Clearing it out is its own small ceremony, carrying box after box down to the cellar or out to the curb, until the room stands empty at last, bare-floored and echoing, waiting to be made new. You stand in the middle of it when it's finally cleared and turned slowly around, seeing it not as it is, but as it will be. The colour is chosen with great care and much friendly disagreement. It cannot be blue, and it cannot be pink, for you do not yet know which would be right, and so it must be one of the gentle in-between shades that will suit whoever arrives. A soft, buttery yellow, perhaps, or the palest green of a new leaf. Your husband stirs the can on the back step and climbs the ladder and lays it on in long, even strokes while you hand up the brush and offer advice he does not need, and the whole house fills with the sharp, clean smell of fresh paint and beginnings. The crib is not new. Few things in the room are. It came down from an attic across the street or out of a cousin's cellar, and it has held other babies before this one and will hold others after. You go over every inch of it, tightening the screws, checking that the side rails rise and fall as they should, running your hand along the rails to be sure no splinter waits there. Your husband gives it a fresh coat of paint to match nothing in particular, and everything in general, and when it is dry you push it into place beneath the window, where the morning light will fall and stand back, and there it is. A crib, in a nursery. It makes the whole thing suddenly, breathtakingly real. You sew the curtains yourself, or your mother sends them, run up on her own machine and folded into a parcel with a note. You hang them at the window and step back and adjust them and step back again, and the light comes through them soft and filtered, and the bare room begins at last to look like a place where a child might sleep. A chest of drawers goes against the far wall, its drawers already filling with the tiny folded things. A low chair is set in the corner for the long nights of rocking that are coming. On the sill you place some small foolish ornament, a china rabbit, a little lamp, because a room like this ought to have one thing in it that is purely for delight. There is no great spending in any of it. This is not a time or a place for that, and it would not occur to you. The room comes together out of hand-me-downs and homemade things, out of a Saturday's work and a coat of paint and the generosity of neighbours, and it is, when it is finished, more precious for all of that than any room bought new could ever be. Every piece in it has a story, has held another child, has passed through loving hands to reach you. The mothers who come after you will fill such rooms from bright catalogues and shining stores, matched and monogrammed and perfect, and there will be a loveliness in that. But your little room holds something their perfection cannot. The warmth of many hands, the sense of a child arriving not into a showroom, but into the middle of a family that has been getting ready. And in the evenings, when the work is done and the paint is dry and the tiny clothes are folded away, you find yourself drawn back to it, again and again. You stand in the doorway with a hand resting on the frame and simply look. The crib beneath the window, the curtains stirring in the evening air, the little china rabbit catching the last of the light. It is so quiet in there now, so still, so full of waiting. You try to picture it as it will be, filled with cries and coos and the small sounds of a life, and you cannot quite, not yet. But you know it is coming. Some night not so far off, that empty crib will hold your own child, and you will cross this floor in the dark, and this quiet room will become the centre of the whole turning world. For now it waits, hushed and hopeful in the gathering dusk, and you stand in the doorway a little longer than you mean to, unwilling to break the spell, keeping watch over a room that is not empty at all, but simply full of everything that is about to be. Piece by piece, a tiny wardrobe begins to fill the dresser drawers. There are the soft undershirts, no bigger than your two hands together, the flannel gowns with drawstrings at the hem, the knitted booties and the little caps, the stacks of folded receiving blankets that smell of soap and sunshine off the line. Your mother knits a sweater in a colour that will suit either a boy or a girl. You run your fingers over each little garment as you put it away, marvelling that anyone could ever be small enough to wear it, and letting yourself believe, a little more each day, that soon someone will. You gather them slowly over the months, the way a bird builds a nest, a thread at a time. Some you buy, a few at a go, tucking a small package into the market basket alongside the bread and the flour, unable to resist. Some are given, arriving in soft parcels from aunts and grandmothers and the women of the street who have been saving them or making them or passing them along from their own children now grown. And a great many you make yourself in the long, quiet evenings, needles clicking softly while the radio plays and your husband reads across the room. The drawstring gowns are the cleverest things, open at the bottom and gathered with a little tie, so that in the bleary middle of a winter night a mother need not fumble with buttons or pins, but only loosen the string. The undershirts cross over in front and tie at the side, made to fit a body so new it cannot yet hold up its own head. The blankets are flannel, soft as a breath, and you hem them yourself and wash them and hang them on the line, so that when at last they wrap a small warm body, they will smell of nothing but soap and sun and clean fresh air. You keep to the gentle colours, the whites and creams and butter yellows, the soft greens that could go either way, because the great secret of boy or girl is still safely kept. It gives everything a tender neutrality, this not knowing, a softness that suits the whole endeavour. Later there will be time enough for the blues or the pinks, once the little one has arrived and announced which it is to be. For now everything waits, colourless as a cloud, ready for whoever comes. Your mother's sweater is the treasure of the collection, and you know it the moment you unwrap it. She has knit it in the evenings a long train ride away, thinking of you with every stitch, and the wool is soft and the pattern is fine, and there is more love worked into it than the pattern could ever call for. You hold it up to the light and turn it in your hands, this impossibly small garment that took her all those hours, and you think of her hands making it, and your throat goes tight. You fold it and lay it in the drawer on the top of the pile, where you will see it every time you open it. There is a real economy in all of this, and you feel the good sense of it even as you feel the sweetness. A baby grows so fast that the finest things are outgrown in a season, and so the wise way is the old way, to borrow and to make and to pass along, so that a single knitted cap may warm the heads of half a dozen children up and down the block before it is done. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is bought that can be made or given. There is no shame in a hand-me-down here, only the quiet pride of belonging to a place where such things are shared without a second thought. The mothers who come after you will fill their nurseries from great bright stores, everything new and matched and boxed, the tags still on, more than any one small child could wear before growing out of it. And there will be a joy in that abundance, no doubt, but there is a different joy in your slowly gathered little store, each piece with a history, each one carrying the warmth of the hands that made it or wore it first. Your baby will be dressed quite literally in love, wrapped in the work of a whole circle of women who set their needles clicking on its behalf before it ever drew a breath. And so the drawers fill week by week, and the little pile grows, and every so often you open the top drawer for no reason at all, only to look. You take out a gown and hold it up, so small it hangs from your 2 fingers. You press a folded blanket to your face and breathe in the smell of soap and sun. You lay your mother's sweater out flat and smooth it with your palm and imagine some snowlit morning to come, easing small waving arms into those small waiting sleeves. You cannot picture the face that will fill these clothes, not yet, but you can picture the clothes upon it, warm and soft and clean, and that is nearly as good. The nest is nearly built now. The drawers are nearly full, and soon, soon someone will come who is small enough after all to wear these impossibly little things, and you'll hardly be able to believe, holding that someone at last, that they were ever so new. One afternoon the ladies gather in a neighbour's front parlour, and it is all in your honour, though you do nothing at all but sit and be celebrated. There are cups of punch and small sandwiches with the crust cut off, and a cake, and folding chairs arranged in a friendly circle. You sit in the place of honour and open each wrapped gift while the room coos over rattles and bibs and tiny hand-smocked dresses. There is laughter and a little happy weeping and advice, always more advice. And surrounded by these women who have walked this road before you, you feel, for one whole afternoon, wonderfully and completely held. It has been kept a secret from you, or half a secret in the way of these things, so that you arrive in your best dress not quite sure, and find the parlour decked out, and the faces all turned toward you, glad and shining. The good china has come out for the occasion. Someone has strung crepe paper across the doorway. The dining table is laid with a lace cloth and crowded with all the small delicacies the women make for such afternoons, the tiny sandwiches and the nut breads and the pastel mints that melt on the tongue, the glass bowl of pink punch with its ring of ice floating in the middle. They settle you in the softest chair, the one they have decided is yours for the day, and they will not let you lift a finger. You're waited upon. Your cup is refilled before you notice it is empty. A plate appears at your elbow. It is a strange and lovely thing to be fussed over so, and you sit in the middle of it all a little overwhelmed, your cheeks warm with the attention. And then the gifts. They are piled on a side table, wrapped in soft papers and tied with ribbon, and they hand them to you one at a time and lean in close to watch you open each one. Out come the treasures, small enough to break your heart, a knitted bonnet, a rattle of painted wood, a stack of clean white diapers folded square, a little dress smocked by hand across the front, so fine you can hardly believe the work of it, and you look up to find the woman who made it beaming and pink with pleasure. Booties, bibs, a silver spoon from the grandmother of the house meant to be kept. With each one the room lets out its soft chorus of delight, and the ribbon collects in a bright tangle in your lap, and someone gathers up the bows to be saved. There are games, of course, the small, silly games these afternoons always hold, and there is a great deal of laughter over them. There is advice freely and lovingly given, the older women unable to help themselves, each with her own hard-won wisdom to press upon you. And beneath the fun and the sweetness there is something older and deeper going on, though no one would ever name it so plainly. You are being welcomed. You are being gathered up into the company of mothers, taken in among the women who have done this thing and know its weight, made one of them at last. For this is women's country, this parlour on this afternoon, and there is not a man in sight, nor is one wanted. Here among themselves the women speak more freely than they might elsewhere, of the things only they know, the aches and the fears and the deep animal joys of it. They tell you what to expect in low, kind voices, the things the books leave out. They laugh at their own old stories, and in the telling and the laughing they pass something to you, hand to hand, that has been passed down among women since the beginning of the world, older than any book, older than any doctor, the plain fierce knowledge of how to bring a life into the world and love it. The mothers who come after you will be feted differently, with grander parties and longer lists and gifts ordered from far away by the dozen, and there will be a brightness to all of that. But it may not always hold this. The warm, crowded parlour of women who live within calling distance, who will still be there long after the wrapping paper is thrown away, who are not simply celebrating you today, but promising you, without saying so, that they will help you carry what is coming. When at last the afternoon winds down, and the punch bowl stands empty and the last mint is gone, they help you gather your treasures into their boxes and their bags, more than you can carry alone, and they walk you to the door in a fond little crowd. You step back out into the ordinary light of the street with your arms full of soft small things and your heart fuller still. And walking the short way home, laden with the kindness of your neighbours, you understand that you have not only been given a great many things this afternoon, you have been given a great many people, a whole circle of them, and you will not, you see now, be doing any of this alone. Now the calendar seems to slow to a crawl. You have grown large and tired, and the summer heat, or the winter cold, presses in through the windows. Sleep comes in fits, and you shift and settle through the long nights, unable to find a comfortable way to lie. The nursery is ready, the little clothes are washed and folded, everything that can be done has been done, and all that is left is the waiting, that strange, suspended, endless feeling stretch of days when you carry the whole future quietly inside you and simply wait for it to arrive. The days have a curious shape to them now, long and slow and heavy, each one much like the last. You move through them at a gentler pace than you once did, one hand often at the small of your back, pausing on the stairs, easing yourself down into chairs and up out of them again with a small sound you did not use to make. The ordinary work of the house takes longer than it did. You do it anyway, the washing and the cooking and the dusting, because the doing of it fills the hours and keeps the waiting from swallowing you whole. The nights are the hardest. You lie in the dark and cannot find the way to lie. You prop yourself with pillows this way and that, and just as you begin to drift, the baby stirs and turns within you, wide awake in there, kicking at your ribs, and you lie a while longer feeling it move in the dark, half exasperated and half in love. You get up to pad down the hall, you come back and try again. The clock on the dresser ticks through the small hours, and sleep comes and goes in shallow pieces, and morning arrives before you feel you have rested at all. You are ready, and yet you cannot make it come. That is the peculiar torment of these final weeks. There is nothing left to prepare. The crib waits beneath the window. The drawers are full of folded gowns. The little case stands packed by the bedroom door. You have done every single thing there is to do, checked and rechecked all of it, and still the days go by and the baby does not come, and you begin to feel you've been pregnant your whole life and will go on being so forever. The waiting wears at everyone. Your husband hovers, watchful, jumping a little each time you shift or sigh, asking if it is time, and you tell him no, not yet, you will know, you will tell him. The women of the street watch you with a knowing eye and tell you it will not be long now. They can see it in the way you have dropped, in the look of you, and you cling to their old wisdom because there is nothing else to cling to. Your mother writes or telephones, counting the days along with you from far away, ready to come at the word. Everyone is waiting. The whole small world of your life is holding its breath. You cannot know the day. There is no way to know it, no promise anyone can give you. The doctor names a week, a rough guess drawn from a calendar, and even he will tell you a baby comes in its own time and not on any schedule of ours. And so you live inside a great question mark these last weeks, going to bed each night wondering if this will be the night, waking each morning to find it was not, carrying always at the back of your mind the knowledge that at any hour at all, it might begin. There is a strange grace hidden in all this waiting, though it is hard to feel it while you're in the thick of it. It is the last stretch of quiet you will know for a long while, though you do not yet understand that. Soon enough the house will be full of a small, demanding life, and you will look back on these slow, heavy days almost with longing, on the last of the mornings that were only your own. But you cannot know that yet, for now there is only the waiting and the tiredness and the great impatient love straining toward the day. So you rest when you can. You walk a little, because the women tell you walking helps things along, and you go up and down the block at your slow new pace, one hand beneath the swell of you, nodding to the neighbours on their porches. You keep the little case by the door, you keep the doctor's number by the telephone, and you wait and wait in that suspended and endless feeling stretch of days, carrying the whole unknown future quietly inside you until the morning or the midnight, when at long last, the waiting ends. Weeks before you truly need it, you pack the little overnight case and set it by the bedroom door just in case. Into it go your nightgown and your robe, your slippers, your toothbrush, and a going-home outfit for a baby you have not met. You check it and recheck it, adding a small thing here, taking out another there, as if getting it exactly right might somehow smooth the road ahead. And every time you pass that closed suitcase waiting by the door, your stomach gives a little flip, because you know that the next time you carry it out of this house, everything will be different. It is your own small case, the one you have carried on trips to visit family, and there is something strange in seeing it packed for this, of all journeys. You lay the things in it carefully, the way you were taught to pack, the heavier things at the bottom, the folded gowns on top. A fresh nightgown, a pretty one, because you will be seen in it, by nurses and by visitors, and in the photographs your husband will surely take. Your good robe, your slippers, your comb and your toothbrush and the small cakes of soap you prefer. A little lipstick, because even now, even there, a woman likes to look herself. And then, most carefully of all, the going-home outfit. It is the one thing in the case that is not for you at all, and it undoes you a little every time you look at it. A tiny gown, a knitted cap and booties, a fresh receiving blanket to wrap it all against the outside air, whatever the season. You have washed these things and pressed them and folded them just so, and you lay them in the case on top of everything else, and you cannot quite believe that when you next take them out, there will be a real small person to put inside them. You pack it far too early. You know you do. There are weeks yet, most likely, by the doctor's reckoning, but you cannot rest easy without it done, and so it stands by the bedroom door, closed and waiting, long before there is any real chance you will need it, and you cannot leave it alone. You open it again and again, over the days, to check that everything is there, to add a thing you thought of in the night, to take out a thing that now seems foolish. You are not truly worried you have forgotten anything. It is only that the packing and the checking give your restless hands something to do, some small way to prepare for the great unprepared-for thing that is coming. Your husband learns the sight of that case by the door, and it does something to him too. He glances at it when he passes. Once you catch him standing over it, having opened it himself, simply looking at the tiny folded gown on top, and he closes it again quickly and clears his throat and pretends he was doing something else. But you saw. It is real to him, that little case. In a way, even the crib is not, because it means the going, the day itself, the drive through the dark. It is the one packed bag that stands for the whole enormous change bearing down on you both. There is no calling ahead to be certain, no easy way in these years to know your exact time is near. So the case must simply stand ready, day and night, for the hour that will announce itself when it chooses. It waits by the door through supper and through sleep, through ordinary mornings and long, slow afternoons, a small silent promise that when the moment comes you will not be caught unready. You have seen to that at least. Whatever else you cannot control, and it is nearly everything, you can control this. The case is packed. The case is ready. And each time you pass it, that little flip comes in your stomach, that mingling of dread and longing that has become the constant weather of these final days. Because you know what that case means. You know that some hour soon you will pick it up in a hurry, in the dark most likely, and carry it out to the waiting car and leave this house one person and return to it. Days later, changed forever. No longer a woman waiting for a child, but a mother carrying one across the threshold. So it stands there by the door, closed and patient, holding your nightgown and your slippers and the impossibly small clothes of someone not yet born. And you go on with your slow, careful days, and you pass it a dozen times between morning and night, and every single time you look at it, and your heart turns over, and you think, not yet, but soon, soon. The next time I carry you out that door, nothing will ever be the same again. It comes, as these things so often do, in the deep quiet of the middle of the night. You wake in the dark, uncertain at first, lying very still and waiting to be sure. Then it comes again, that unmistakable tightening, and you know. You reach over and wake your husband with a hand on his shoulder, and you hear the change in his breathing as he understands. The house is silent all around you, the street outside dark and sleeping, and in that hushed and holy moment, the two of you rise together to begin the most important night of your lives. You lie there a while first, before you wake him, just to be certain. You've been fooled before by the false pangs that come and go in the last weeks, and you do not want to raise the alarm for nothing. So you wait, holding your breath in the dark, one hand resting on the great round of yourself, counting silently the way the doctor told you, and when it comes again, and then again, steady and true and closer than before, the last of your doubt falls away. This is it. This is the night. After all the long, slow weeks of waiting, the time has come at last. You wake him gently, though your heart is pounding. His breathing catches, and he goes still, and then he is fully awake all at once, sitting up in the dark, his voice low and urgent, asking, is it time? Is it really time? And you tell him yes. Yes, you think so. Yes. And for a moment the two of you simply sit there in the dark bed, hands found and held on the very edge of everything, letting it be true. Then you rise together, and the quiet, careful bustle begins. He fumbles for the lamp, and the sudden light makes you both blink. He pulls on his trousers over his pyjamas, his hands not quite steady, and you can see that beneath his effort at calm he is as frightened and as joyful as you are. He asks you a dozen times if you're all right, if it hurts, what he should do, and you find, to your own surprise, that you are the steadier of the two, that some deep quiet has come over you now that the waiting is finally done. He telephones the doctor, his voice hushed against the sleeping house, And you hear him giving the news, listening, nodding, saying yes and thank you, and we're leaving now. The doctor will meet you there. Everything is arranged, has been arranged for weeks, and the plan unfolds now in the dark just as you laid it. The little case stands ready by the door where it has waited so long. There is nothing to gather, nothing to search for. You had seen to all of that in those restless days, and you are glad of it now, glad past telling. You move slowly through the dim house, pausing when the tightening comes, breathing through it the way you've been taught, while he carries the case out to the car and starts the engine so the heater might warm it for you. You stand a moment in the front hall, one hand on the door frame, and you look back at the sleeping house, the darkened parlour, the stairs, the hall that leads to the little waiting room. You are leaving it, you realise, for the last time as the woman you have been. The next time you cross this threshold, you will be carrying your child. There is no rushing wildly through the streets, no drama beyond the pounding of your own two hearts. It is all much quieter than you might have imagined this beginning. The neighbourhood sleeps on around you, every window dark, every house hushed, no one else in all the world knowing what is happening in yours. A dog barks once, somewhere down the block, and falls silent. The street lamp hums over the empty road, and the two of you step out together into the cold, clean dark, into the great turning point of your lives, moving softly so as not to wake a soul. He helps you into the car and comes around and slides in beside you, and for just a moment before he puts it into gear, he turns and looks at you in the dim glow of the street lamp, and you look back at him, and neither of you says a word. There's nothing that needs saying. Everything is in that look. The fear and the joy, the love and the terror, the whole long road behind you and the great unknown one ahead. Then he faces forward, and the car pulls away from the curb, and the dark houses begin to slide past. The most important night of your lives has begun, and there is no turning back now, and you would not turn back for anything on earth. The car pulls out of the driveway into streets that are empty and strange at this hour, the street lamps casting their pools of amber light on the pavement. Your husband drives with both hands tight on the wheel, glancing over at you far more often than he glances at the road. You watch the sleeping houses slide past, every window dark, everyone inside them unaware that tonight, for you, the whole world is turning over. The heater hums, the engine steadies, and through the windshield, the hospital's lights appear at last, glowing warmly against the dark, waiting to take you in. The town looks like nowhere you have ever been, at this hour and in this state. The streets you know by heart, the corner where the grocer stands, the church, the school, all of them are transformed by the darkness and the silence into something dreamlike and unfamiliar. Not a soul is abroad. The traffic signals blink their patient yellow to no one at all. Your husband slows at the empty intersections out of habit, out of a care that has suddenly become enormous, and you understand without a word that he is driving as he has never driven before, carrying the two most precious cargoes of his life. The pangs come and go as you ride, and you have learned their rhythm now, and you breathe through each one with your eyes half closed while he watches you sidelong, helpless, wishing he could do the thing for you and knowing he cannot. Each time one passes, he lets out a breath he did not know he was holding. He asks if you are all right. He asks if he should hurry. You tell him no. There is time. Drive carefully. And he nods and grips the wheel and drives on through the amber-lit dark. You rest your head against the cool glass between the panes and watch the houses go by, and a strange tenderness rises in you for all of them, all those dark and sleeping homes. Behind each of those black windows a family lies dreaming, ordinary and unknowing, while you pass by on the greatest errand of your life, It seems impossible that the world can be so quiet, so unremarkable on such a night. You want, absurdly, to call out to them, to wake the whole street, to tell them what is happening. But the town sleeps on and you let it, and the car carries you forward through the hush. There's time to think. On a drive like this, more time than you expected. You think of the little room at the end of the hall waiting empty. You think of your mother far away, whom you must telephone when it is over. You think with a catch in your throat that the next time you make this same drive in reverse going home, there will be 3 of you in the car instead of 2, and the thought is so enormous you can hardly hold it. You steal a look at your husband's profile, set and serious in the dashboard glow, and you love him so fiercely in that moment that your eyes sting. Then the hospital rises up ahead, its windows lit warm and gold against the black sky, steady and welcoming, and something in you loosens at the sight of it. He turns in at the entrance and pulls up beneath the light, and for a moment the 2 of you simply sit there, the engine ticking, on the very edge of it now. This is the place. This is where it happens. This is where, in some hour still hidden from you, you will meet your child. He is out of the car and around to your side before you have gathered yourself, opening your door, offering his arm, his face pale and determined in the light spilling from the doorway. Attendants appear, brisk and calm, a chair is brought, and gentle, competent hands take charge of you now. And you feel yourself passing, in that moment, out of your husband's keeping and into theirs, out of the small private world of the car and the 2 of you, into the larger machinery of the place, where things will happen to you and around you that you cannot control and will not fully remember. He walks beside you, as far as they will let him, holding your hand, saying you'll be fine, you'll be just fine, I'll be right here, and you can hear that he is saying it as much to himself as to you. And then you reach the point past which he may not go, and there is a moment, brief and wrenching, where his hand is taken from yours, and you are wheeled on ahead through the swinging doors, and he is left standing there behind you in the corridor, watching you go, alone. You turn to look back at him for as long as you can, and then the doors close between you, and you're carried forward into the bright and waiting world beyond them, to do the last of it, in these years, without him. They meet you at the door and take you gently from your husband's side, and just like that you're swept into a world of white uniforms and soft rubber soles squeaking on polished floors. This is simply how it is done in these years. You are in the hands of the nurses now, in a system that believes it knows best, and much of what happens next will pass in a soft, distant haze you will never fully remember. It is a strange way to meet your child, half here and half somewhere else, and yet all across the country in this very same season, mothers by the thousands are being carried through these same quiet, antiseptic hours. The nurses are kind in their brisk and busy way, moving around you with a practiced calm that is meant to steady you and mostly does. They speak to you in low, reassuring voices, telling you what will happen, though not always why. There is a great faith in these years in the doctors and the hospitals, in the modern and scientific way of doing things, and you have been raised in that faith along with everyone else. You give yourself over to it now. You let them lead you, and gown you, and settle you, and you trust that they know the road ahead far better than you do. The room is very white and very clean, and it smells of the sharp, bright things they clean it with, and everything in it is hard and gleaming and made to be scrubbed. There is little that is soft or homelike here. This is a place built for a purpose, and the purpose is safety, and you understand and are grateful, even as some small part of you longs for your own dim bedroom and your own worn quilt and the little room down the hall. But this is where babies are born now. The kitchen tables and the attending grandmothers of the older days are gone, or nearly, and this is the modern way, and you are a modern woman, and here is where you are. The doctor comes at some point, the same unhurried older man who has seen you through all these months, and his familiar face is a great comfort in the strangeness of it all. And then, as the hours deepen and the work of it grows harder, they give you something, as they give nearly every mother something in these years, a medicine to ease you, to carry you up and out of the worst of it, and it does its work, and the room goes soft and far away, and the sharp edges of the world blur and recede, and here is the strange heart of it, the thing the mothers of these years all know, and few will speak of plainly. You will not remember much of what comes next. The medicine takes the pain, or the memory of the pain, and with it takes great stretches of the night, so that the very hours in which your child comes into the world will be, for you, a kind of blank, a soft grey nothing, a sleep you cannot recall. You will be there and not there. The most important work of your life will be done half in a dream. There are things lost in that, though no one thinks to mourn them yet. The mothers who come after you will be awake for all of it, present and clear-eyed, will feel every hard moment and remember every one, will have their husbands at their sides and see their babies come into the world with their own 2 eyes, and they will count themselves fortunate and rightly, but that is a change still years off, only just beginning to stir in a few quiet corners, for now this is the way, the only way you know, the way your own mother went and her mother before her would scarcely recognize. You trust the doctors, you take what they give you, you let the haze come down. And so the hours pass, strange and dim and distant, marked out by the squeak of rubber soles and the low voices of the nurses and the far-off sense of your own body doing the ancient work it was made for, somewhere below the surface of the drifting dream they have given you. Time comes loose from its moorings. You surface and sink and surface again. You are aware dimly of effort, of urgency, of the room drawing tight around some great approaching thing. You will never be able to say afterward exactly how it went, or how long, or what you felt in the deepest hour of it. That is the bargain of these years, the trade you didn't quite know you were making. But you know this much, even through the haze, even half lost in the soft grey distance of it. Somewhere very close now, just beyond the reach of your drifting mind, your child is coming, and whatever you do or do not remember of this strange, bright antiseptic night, you're about to be handed the one thing that will make you forget you ever wished to remember it at all. Down the hall, behind a door he is not allowed to pass, your husband waits. This is not his place. The doctors and nurses have made that clear, and so he sits in a room full of other men in the very same suspended state, pacing the linoleum, thumbing through magazines he does not read. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and nerves. Someone has a box of cigars tucked in his coat pocket ready for the good news. They do not talk much, these waiting fathers, but every time the door swings open they all look up at once, hoping and dreading, waiting to hear their own name called. It is a strange fellowship, the one that gathers in that room. They are strangers to one another, these men, brought together by nothing but the accident of the same long night, and yet they are bound in that hour more closely than they are bound to most of the people they know. Each one has just handed the person he loves best in all the world through a set of doors he cannot follow her past. Each one is helpless now, in a way a man of these years is rarely helpless, with nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to carry or drive or provide. There is only the waiting, and the waiting is terrible. Your husband cannot sit still. He tries. He lowers himself into one of the hard chairs and picks up a magazine and stares at a page without seeing a word of it, and then he is up again, pacing the length of the room, to the window, back to the door, to the window again. He has smoked more in these hours than he has smoked in weeks, and the room is blue with it, all of them at it. the little glass ashtrays filling, the smoke a kind of language for everything they cannot say. He checks his watch. He has checked it 100 times. The hands seem hardly to move. He thinks of you beyond the doors and can picture nothing, and that is the worst of it. The not knowing, the being kept back. He is not permitted to be with you. It is simply not done in these years. A man's place at such a time is here, in this smoky room, out of the way of the doctors and the nurses who know their business, and he accepts it because everyone accepts it, because his own father waited just so, and his father before him. But acceptance does not make it easy. Every instinct in him strains toward those doors and the woman beyond them, and he can do nothing at all, but wait. Now and then one of the men is delivered. A nurse appears in the doorway, cool and smiling, and speaks a name, and one of them leaps up, and there is a brief low exchange, and then his whole face changes, breaks open, and he is a father, and it is a boy or a girl, and the cigars come out of his pocket, and he is pressing them on all the others, with his hand shaking and his eyes bright. And the rest of them shake his hand and clap his back and are glad for him. Truly glad, and glad too, they cannot help it, that the door has opened once and so may open again, for them, soon. And then he is gone, that lucky one, off to see his wife and his new child, and the room settles back into its smoky waiting. One man fewer, the rest of them left to their pacing and their watches and their unread magazines. Your husband watches the fortunate father go, and something in his chest twists, half joy and half raw longing. When, he thinks, when will it be my name? When will that door open for me? The mothers who come after you will have their husbands beside them through all of it, holding a hand, wiping a brow, seeing the child come into the world in the very same moment she does, joined to her in the great event instead of shut out from it down a smoke-filled hall. And it will be better so. Almost everyone will come to agree. Better for the wife and better for the husband and better for the bond of the three of them. But your husband knows nothing of that yet. He knows only this room, this night, this waiting, the same waiting his father knew, the loneliest and most helpless hours of his life. So he paces, and he smokes, and he checks the crawling watch, and he waits. He waits through the deepest part of the night, while beyond those doors, in the haze and the bright light, the great thing is happening without him. And he keeps his eyes on that door, every time it swings, hoping and dreading, ready to spring up, waiting with his whole heart for the moment a smiling nurse will step through it at last and speak his name and tell him the thing he's been waiting all his life to hear. And then, at last, out of all the blur and effort and waiting, someone places a small warm weight into your arms. You look down into a face you've been imagining for 9 long months and find it is nothing like what you pictured, and somehow exactly right. The tiny fists, the impossibly small fingers, the crumpled brow, the searching eyes that find yours and hold them, every ache and every fear falls away in a single instant. There is only this new person breathing against you, and the astonishing, world-remaking realization that you are, from this moment on, a mother. The haze is still on you, the soft grey distance of the medicine only now beginning to lift, and so this first moment comes to you like something out of a dream, wavering and luminous at the edges. But the weight in your arms is real, that much you know for certain. It is warm, and it is heavier than you expected, and it moves, small limbs stirring against you, and it is yours. You have carried this weight inside you all these months, felt it turn and kick in the dark, wondered at its face, and now here it is, laid against your breast, and you can hardly breathe for the wonder of it. You study the little face with a hunger you did not know you had. You count the features as though they might vanish if you looked away. The round of the cheek, the whirl of one ear, the mouth working softly, the dark, unfocused eyes. There is a red, crumpled fury to that face, and a fragile newness, and you search it for some sign of yourself or of your husband, and find or imagine the shape of your mother's chin, the set of his brow. It is a stranger's face and the most familiar face in the world, both at once, and you cannot stop looking at it. The tiny hand is what undoes you utterly. A nurse loosens the wrapping, and there it is, a hand no bigger than the top joint of your thumb, the fingers curled tight, the nails impossibly small and perfect. You offer your own finger, and the little fingers close around it, gripping with a strength that astonishes you, and something breaks open in your chest, some last held breath of all these waiting months, and the tears come at last, running warm and unstopped down your face. You had not known you could feel a thing so large. Around you the nurses move on their soft rubber soles, brisk and smiling, seeing this every day and yet gentle by it every time, the way people are gentle by a sunrise no matter how many they have seen. They tell you it is a boy or a girl, and the great long secret is out at last, and the word settles over you like a benediction, so that this nameless someone you have carried becomes in an instant a son, a daughter, one of the two names you have kept ready all these months, rising up now to fit the little face. They will not let you keep the baby long this first time. That is the way of it here. In a moment a nurse will lift the small warm weight from your arms to be washed and weighed and taken off to the nursery down the hall, and you will feel the loss of it like a physical ache, your empty arms curling toward where the weight had been. But for now, for this one suspended shining moment, the baby is yours and yours alone, laid against you, breathing, real, and you press your lips to the damp warm head and breathe in the strange new smell of it, and you try to hold the moment still, to keep it forever exactly as it is. The mothers who come after you will keep their babies close from the very first, will hold them skin to skin for hours, will not be parted from them at all if they can help it, and there will be a great rightness in that. Your moment is briefer, snatched from the haze, soon interrupted, but it is no less holy for that. However short it is, however dreamlike, it is the moment your whole life divides upon, the before and the after of it, the instant you became someone you can never stop being again. You think dimly of your husband down the hall behind his forbidden door, who does not yet know, who is still pacing and smoking and waiting for his name. In a moment they will go and tell him. In a moment his whole world will turn over as yours has just turned. You wish he were here to see this face, and he is not, and you store it up to tell him every detail, the fists and the cry and the grip of the tiny hand, so that he may have it too, second hand as near as he is allowed to come. But that is a moment away, for now there is only you and this small breathing someone in the bright quiet aftermath, at the still centre of the turning world. Every ache is forgotten, every fear of the long months has fallen away and dissolved. You're emptied out and filled up all at once, undone and remade, and you look down into the crumpled, searching face of your child, and understand that nothing from this moment on will ever be the same, and that you would not have it any other way, not for all the world. In these years you do not simply go home the next morning. You stay, several days at least, tucked into a hospital bed while the nurses wheel the babies down from the nursery at appointed hours and carry them away again so that you might rest. There are flowers on the windowsill from your husband, and cards, and quiet visits with the other new mothers down the ward. It is a strange and cocooned little stretch of time, these gentle days of doing almost nothing but healing and holding, before the real work of motherhood begins in earnest at home. The days have a shape to them here, a rhythm set by the nurses and the clock, and there is a curious comfort in surrendering to it. You wake to the bright bustle of the morning ward, to breakfast brought on a tray, to the thermometer and the gentle checking over, and you have nothing at all to do but lie there and be tended. For a woman who keeps a house, who is always at the stove or the sink or the washing line, this enforced idleness is the strangest luxury, almost guilty in its sweetness. You are waited upon. You're told to rest, and for once you obey. The great event of each day is the hours when they bring the babies. You hear the little cart coming down the corridor, and your heart leaps, and then a nurse is laying the small bundle in your arms, your own, unmistakably your own now, and for a while the baby is yours to hold and to feed and to marvel at. You unwrap the blanket to look again at the tiny hands. You count the fingers once more, as though they might have changed since yesterday. And then, all too soon, the nurse returns and lifts the baby gently away, back to the nursery down the hall where the newborns lie in their rows behind the glass, and your arms are empty again, and you are told kindly to sleep. It is a strange arrangement, and it will not last beyond these years, this keeping of the babies apart from their mothers for the sake of order and rest. There is a distance in it that a later age will do away with, but there is a gift folded inside it too, one the mothers who come after may not have. You are given time to heal. You are given quiet and care and days with no demand upon you but to grow strong, before the whole exhausting, glorious weight of it descends. You do not know yet to be grateful for that, but you will, soon enough, in the sleepless weeks to come. Your husband visits in the evenings, scrubbed and shy and grinning, allowed at last to stand at your bedside and gaze through the nursery glass at the small red face that is his. He brings flowers, a modest bunch that the nurse arranges in a water glass on the sill. He brings the news of home and the messages of the neighbours, and a foolish happiness that he cannot keep off his face. He holds your hand and looks at you as though you've done something miraculous, which you suppose you have. And there are the other mothers, in the beds along the ward, each of them cradling her own new wonder in the appointed hours, each of them living through these same soft cocooned days. You fall into easy talk with them, in the quiet stretches, the way women do who are passing through the same great passage at the same time. You compare your babies, and your aches, and your husband's foolish grins. You trade the small wisdom you have each been given, and though you may never see one another again once you have gone home to your separate streets, you are sisters for these few days, bound by the shared newness of it, and there is a comfort in that company you did not expect. The nights are quiet, once the visitors have gone and the ward is dimmed. You lie in the strange bed and listen to the hushed sounds of the place, the soft tread of the night nurse, the far-off cry of somebody's newborn quickly soothed. You think of the little room at home at the end of the hall waiting, the crib beneath the window, and you try to imagine the baby in it, and yourself beside it in the dark, and you cannot quite. Not yet. That is still to come. That is the after, and you are still, just barely, in the between. So you take these days for what they are. This last strange island of rest, this cocoon of clean sheets and kind hands and appointed hours. You heal. You hold your baby when they bring it and give it up when they take it. You gather your strength for the great task waiting past the hospital doors, the one no nurse will lift from your arms at the end of the hour, and slowly, over these gentle days, you grow ready, in body and in heart, to carry your child home at last, and to begin, in earnest, and forever, the work of being its mother. So here we are, at the end of it, The long, slow journey from that first quiet morning at the kitchen sink to the small, warm weight breathing against a shoulder in the afternoon light. We've walked through all of it together tonight. The wondering and the telling, the needle on its thread and the sweater knit a train ride away, the little room made ready at the end of the hall, and the case that waited by the door, and the drive through the dark, and the first astonishing grip of a tiny hand. A whole life turning over, quietly, the way leaves really do. It is easy, looking back, to wrap these years in a golden haze. But the women who lived them did not think of themselves as living in some tender bygone age. They were simply living, rising in the dark to warm the bottle, folding the wash a dozen times a day, leaning over a fence to tell a neighbour the news, keeping the long watch alone, and finding somewhere in the tiredness a love that remade them from the inside out. There was a quiet dignity in all of it, in the ordinary daily labour of holding a small life together, and they carried it without ever thinking to call it brave. Maybe that is the thing to carry forward from tonight. Not the way things were exactly, but the pace of it, the noticing, the willingness to slow down and hold a single moment as though it mattered, because it did, and it does. So as you settle deeper now, and your eyes grow heavy, let that warmth stay with you. Somewhere, once, a mother rocked a baby in a quiet room and hummed a tune her own mother hummed, and the love in that room is the same love that surrounds you now. Rest easy. You are held. Good night.